Story on News at 7. In a case of serious negligence, healthcare major Abbott admits to releasing a batch of medicines with wrong labeling of dosage, raising huge concerns among consumers of this medicine over the repercussions of consuming a much higher dose. This is a thyroid medicine that we are talking about called Thyronorm. In a statement released today, Abbott says it has initiated a voluntary recall on a mislabeled batch of thyroid medicine, Thyronorm, in Madhya Pradesh and Telangana, clarifying that the mishap was confined only to these two states. Now, this is important because we are talking about one of India's most used drug, Thyronorm, and we are also talking about a pharma giant that has admitted to this lapse and has in fact initiated a voluntary recall of the medicines. Now, can such sensitive matters of labeling dosage be taken so casually? Why the lapse and how can we plug these loopholes? What would be the repercussions on those who might have inadvertently taken the higher dose? So let me welcome Dr. Sanjeev Bagai, Chairperson of Nephron, joining us here on the program. Also Dr. Ravi Malik, former Joint Secretary IMA and CMD, Radix Healthcare. Very good evening, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us here. If I can come to you first, Dr. Bagai. From what I could see, the details indicate that this was manufactured in March. Would it have reached the retailer's level? And what, according to you, would be the extent of damage when such a thing happens?
Good evening. So I think this is a very serious lapse. There's nothing short of general malice and a negligence which is inexcusable. It shows a lack of quality control, lack of internal audit and forensic testing. Each batch and each tablet of each batch has to be tested before it's packed, it's labeled, and I think this mislabeling can have serious repercussions. So let me just quickly explain why. When you're talking in terms of this batch, which is labeled as EAJ0713, this is a 25 microgram tablet. These tablets of this are generally used in smaller children, infants, and young adults. When you use this 25 microgram but actually contains 88 micrograms, you can push a patient from hypothyroid, that means low thyroid state, to suddenly hyperthyroid, which we call as thyroid storm. This has major implications on a variety of organs, including the heart, to have palpitations, tachycardia, tremors, agitation, seizures, neurological effects, respiratory effects. And the more important point is these are generally not monitored because you are under the premise that you're using a 25 microgram, but it's 3.5 times more. And this unmonitored can have a mortality which exceeds 25%. That's huge. In India alone, we have more than 10 million cases of hypothyroidism which require daily thyroid supplementation. I think stricter norms are required, more testing is required, and it needs a more corporate level of audit and quality check and control before these medicines come into the market. I think Abbott has only shamed itself.
Abbott has shamed itself. Dr. Ravi Malik, do you agree? More quality control, more corporate level checks and balances are required. One cannot take a chance with anyone's health in this manner, because obviously as a patient, when I see a drug, I'm not going to go and check whether the labeling is correct or not. I will go with whatever is printed on the bottle.
Definitely, the situation is absolutely shocking. It is indefensible and it amounts to negligence. There is no doubt about it. As Dr. Bagai has rightly mentioned, that this tablet is generally taken by pediatric age group because 25 microgram is a lower dose, and if pediatric children are taking 3.5 times higher the dose, then it can have a lot of side effects, like, a patient can have muscle weakness, increased appetite, weight loss, diarrhea, palpitation, muscle spasms. My next worry as a medical professional is that, it can have a cumulative toxicity also, because it is a medicine which is not taken on one-time basis. The patient will be taking it regularly. Supposingly, a patient has purchased this medicine and has started consuming it, and for 10 days, he is ignorant about the dose of about the mislabeling of this medicine, then it can have cumulative toxicity. It will amplify the toxicity. So I'm concerned as a medical person, and it definitely amounts to negligence. Proper inquiry should be conducted, and there should be checks and balances so that these kind of mislabeling should not happen in future.
Right. Dr. Bagai, just being the devil's advocate here, but, would you at least give that much credit to Abbott that it has voluntarily recalled this batch of medicines and it has immediately issued a statement? But do you think that there is more that we need to know from Abbott, that why this mistake happened and where corrections have to be made? Or do you think it is the drug regulatory bodies that have to do the needful?
So it's a multi-pronged strategy. One is, of course, we need to find out how Abbott was informed. Was it through patients who had problems, or was it an internal quality audit which came out late, or there was something else amiss? Point number two is we need, of course, our own systems in place which should be, which are robust, I must add, but more amount of checking to make sure that any multinational which is supplying medication in India, including the Indian pharmas, must adhere to compliances, norms, and minimum level of ethics as far as forensic testing is concerned. And point number three is Abbott must take the responsibility, be it financial, be it medico-legal, that all the children, especially the children and the young adults who've been given this medicine, they be tested. What we need to do is we need to find out, one, is there any immediate impact on the children and the young adults' internal organs? So we need to do the routine blood test, what we call as T3, T4, TSH, and thyroid scans if required. And point number two, make sure that there is no financial liability on these patients. I think just to acknowledge your mistake is one aspect, but to undo it, you need to make sure that the patients who've been subjected to this medication are well looked after. Each bottle of Thyronorm comes as a 100-tablet bottle. That means this tablet, if you're giving it as 25 micrograms, but inadvertently taking 88 micrograms every day, this is more than 3 times what you are expected to take.
Yes.
This bottle will last you for over 3 months. That means the patient has been subjected to this for approximately 12 weeks. We need proper testing to ensure no immediate short-term and long-term damage and consequences of this drug overdose takes place, especially in smaller children.
Are you saying, Dr. Bagai, that there could be more medication required to reverse the effects if anyone has taken the overdose?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And absolutely. I think we need to find out what the level of toxicity is, what the level of your thyroid hormone in the body is, and make sure that there is no long-term impact. Very often, children's complaints as far as symptoms and signs are concerned are masked. So the presentation is by more active clinical science examination and a very high index and suspicion to check if there is any small little issues like tremors or palpitations. These are extremely difficult to find out in a busy outpatient practice, especially in children. So I think all the patients who have taken this medication of this batch need to be evaluated and tested.
As of now, if I may just quote from what the Abbott statement has said, that it says, and I'm reading it out, a small percentage of bottles from the concerned batch of 88 mcg tablets have this incorrect label of 25 mcg. It is important that people take the correct dose, so we have initiated a voluntary recall of the mislabeled batch. It also added saying there was no quality issues, Dr. Ravi Malik, with the product, and they had not received any report of patient impact. Does that absolve Abbott simply to say that no one is impacted? Or do you think that there must be some liability, some negligence, that should be pinned on Abbott for this?
We must understand it is a negligence, and the negligence has happened at multiple levels. Maybe at the level of labeling, maybe at the level of quality control, maybe at the level of auditing. So it has happened at multiple levels. So it is not that, and Abbott cannot say that if nobody has been impacted, you never know. Over coming 1 week, maybe many children takes it, and it can even cause death for that matter. So this fault has occurred at multiple levels. We must understand that, and the responsibilities should be fixed. Not only from the pharma company point of view, from the regulators also we need to fix up the responsibility where the fault has happened. So second point is that immediately we should arrest. It is good that Abbott has admitted this mistake and has put it on media. So that is one good point about it. But that doesn't mean that it puts them off the hook from the negligence. Now, the second thing is that anybody who has taken this medicine should report back to the emergency also, and the child or whosoever patient has taken this medicine, they should be thoroughly and properly checked. Abbott should make it sure that immediately arrest should be there for all these bottles which have been mislabeled and have been floated up in the market. And it is an emergency situation, an emergency alert should be there, and a proper thorough inquiry should be done, and it should be a future learning lesson for all the pharma companies that this kind of negligence should not happen, because ultimately by the end of the tunnel there is a human life which is involved.
Absolutely. I think both the doctors have agreed on this, and I totally take that point that there must be a full disclosure, there must be transparency on why this happened, so that those loopholes can be plugged. And this is again important because we are talking about a company which is highly reputed. We are talking about a drug that is very largely or widely consumed in India. We cannot take a chance. Quickly, Dr. Bagai, before I close.
Yeah, just one point. If Abbott is saying there is no issue with regards to the quality of the drug, the issue is not only of quality, the issue is of negligence, because we are now dealing with a drug overdose, or indeed in certain small children and infants of toxicity. So it's not only of quality, it's the total cumulative dose which has gone in over the past few months in each child.
Right. This is a very important function of the body that it regulates, and one cannot have this kind of a lackadaisical attitude towards labeling medicines, which will, of course, directly impact health. Thank you so much to both the panelists for joining us here on the program. Appreciate your giving us time today.
Thank you. God bless.